Hi. Hello. And welcome back to another episode of my podcast. Now, what was I talking about? My name is V Noir, and this week I'm talking about threesomes. And I mean that quite literally. I'm talking about the movie Threesomes from 1994 and a movie that is kind of similar, but not really, called Splendor, which I believe came out in 98, 99. 99. I was correct. And I'm recording this hella late because my mental health was non-existent. I don't know. I was having a rough day, rough week. I don't know. Um, yeah. The phone is the devil. Is all I can say, really. um, But yeah, so to get into it, because I think this is gonna be like more of a quick one, but not like one of my mini-sodes. Splendor is a 1999 sort of romantic comedy created by Gregg Araki, and I'm bringing that up first because it is a movie that I was familiar with. It was something that I watched when I was much younger. And I remember the ending being cute and um I liked it a lot. And so me and my roommate were on Tubi and we saw this movie Threesomes and I was like, "Oh, that's like Splendor." And I do want to rewatch Splendor. So, let's just get into Threesomes, let's see how it is. And I mean, it was interesting and it was sexual. I will say that. It was sexual. Very cute, very intimate. I like the relationship between the three leads. And before I get too much into that, let me go over the plot. Um, I'm like looking at all the synopsises, and it's just like, we'll just go with this very short one. So, a girl named Alex is mistakenly housed with two guys, Stuart and Eddie, in a college dorm suite. After initial problems, they become friends. And that's just like bleh. But I realized that Tubi I think had a different synopsis, which like intrigued us more or made us want to watch it. So to get into the synopsis that Tubi tells us, after a girl is mistakenly placed in a dorm with two guys, their relationships evolve into a complicated love triangle of passion and mixed signals. I'm like, yeah, that sounds more compelling, doesn't it? And yeah, I mean, it was interesting with because I had like Splendor on my brain. I was like, oh, are we gonna get a like happy ending? And we uh, we don't, not really, but let me rewind before I start talking about the ending off the bat. So this was written and directed by Andrew Fleming, who I looked into it more, thankfully. I definitely like to pause between me speaking in order to, formulate and gain more information if I didn't previously do that. So apparently, this is a sort of autobiographical film, and he based a lot of it on his own college experiences, and it is also dabbled. He has he puts like a little bit of social commentary things on there too, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense because in the movie, the character Eddie is the main person doing a voiceover for the whole thing. So, we can assume he's kind of the main character in this. And so, yeah, it's like if these were, supposed to be Andrew Fleming's like experiences, then Eddie being the main character would make a lot of sense because, Eddie is him essentially. And so, yeah, like I said, at least twice now, a woman named Alex gets mistaken as male in her application, like her college application and placement for her dorms, and she's put into a dorm with two guys who have been there for a while. And even though the dorm itself is co-ed, I think the rooms aren't. So first she's like, "Y'all should change your rooms." And I was like, "What do you mean?" They've been there longer than you, girly pop. But then, she then goes off and tries to get her room changed, and they're like, "No, it says here you're male." And I was like, "I guess it's nice they're being inclusive, I guess." Because she's such a like high feminine like dress person, and they were just accepting the fact that her thing said male on it, even though it wasn't obvious that she was a male. So it's like, okay, that's cool that y'all are accepting. But either way, they basically tell her she has to wait like weeks essentially for her room to get moved. So, she kind of just accepts her fate and lives with the guys. Thankfully, she's in a single, like, first of all, this is a big ass dorm room. I don't know what the hell college they go to, but like, what the fuck? Also, it was really cute because there was like Keith Haring drawings on their walls and everything. I thought that was cool. And let's see. Oh, my baby wants me to pet him. Hey, buddy. And so, yeah, it's a big ass dorm room they're in. She's in the single room. They're in the double room. So she has a room to herself. The boys are sharing a room that has two beds in it. And at first, like, Eddie is the more clean one. Stewart is like sort of the playboy, sleeps around a lot. And then it sort of becomes obvious that Stewart wants to fuck Alex, but then Alex is like overtly horny for Eddie. Like, I was like, oh, she's just like feral, even because there was a scene where they both go to the library, and he's saying all these big words. She gets on the table. Again, this is in the library, and she's like kind of humping the table and like moaning and groaning, and she's just like, oh, these big words, and um sort of orgasms, I guess. I mean, Eddie was confused because he's a virgin, and Stewart thinks he's gay. Stewart clocks his tea about that. um and Eddie's just like, I don't actually know, honestly. But he has like a logical thing about it. Like, it just makes sense that a guy would be with a guy because a guy would just understand how to please another guy. And same with like women and lesbians and stuff. And it's just like, that's not exactly. I'm like, yes and no. That's not all there is to it. Cause I'm like, anal is very much a thing for both parties. um, but either way, so there's a whole thing where Alex realizes that Eddie is into Stewart, and and is like, "Oh, you are gay." And then Alex is like, and Alex talks to Stewart about it, and Stewart's like super accepting. He's like, "I'm not a homophobe or anything." Um, but Alex is just like, "Oh, you haven't met the right guy." Sorry. I'm getting her gender mixed up. I'm getting all the genders mixed up. Alex believes that Eddie hasn't met the right woman. And, this is again why she wants to have sex with him and everything like that. And I'm just like, that's like, that's just correctional rape, essentially. I'm like, he doesn't want to do it with you. But the movie isn't going down that route. And I say that because eventually Alex does sleep with her. because he does become curious and like he's like, "Oh, there's some movement in my pants around her. That's crazy. Haven't felt that before." um, but so basically, before it even comes to them eventually having sex, Alex is like, "We should just make a pact and be friends. Let's not ruin what we have and just, be casual with each other." And this is after Alex and Stuart try to hook Eddie up with this guy who is overtly gay, and Alex is not into him at all. And this kind of starts this string of someone like Stewart, hooking up with this girl and then finally inviting her over, and the other two, Alex and Eddie, not liking her and them all collectively making fun of her. Same with Alex. She brings over this guy named Larry, and I only remember his name because Stewart and Eddie are like, "Scary Larry, he's hairy," and all this stuff, like being very childish and stuff. And then so we kind of get this montage where they're all very friendly with each other, very close and casual, very like queer platonic with each other, of just like, "Oh, yes, we are very intimate, but we're not having sex." And I mean intimate as in like, um, they're holding each other a lot, they're laying on top of each other a lot, there's lots of cuddling and things like that, but they're not actually having sex. But other people seeing them would probably think that they're all involved with each other. And it's like, no, that's not, that wasn't happening just yet with them. But, and then of course there were like rumors that like, oh, Alex and all of them are just like fucking each other or whatever. And, and then it gets to this point where they go skinny dipping. And it does look like they're actually about to like break this barrier of like being physical with each other and like actually sleep with each other. And then all of a sudden they get like interrupted by like a priest and kids walking by. And, I'm like, damn. And there's now this like sort of level of shame maybe that comes into play a little bit, a little bit. But then they do finally, well, no, before they all have sex, Alex and Eddie do have sex with each other. And that happens after Alex and Stuart have sex with each other. And they're kind of just like fucking all the time without Eddie knowing. And then she finally actually has sex with Eddie, the one she does have stronger feelings for. But then Eddie tells Stuart that it wasn't good. It was actually really bad. And Stuart brings us up to Alex, and then she later on confronts Eddie about it, and of course, is upset because what do you mean I'm a bad lay or whatever? And it's like, and then yeah, they so they do eventually have the threesome, and actually, even before that, I'm remembering the plot as I'm saying it. My bad, but that's how my brain works. Eddie suspects that Stuart might actually be gay because he is kind of the stereotypical jock person who's like overtly into women, and overtly masculine to the point it's like, is this an act? Are you putting this on because you are running away from your homosexuality? Right? Like that is how some people behave. And, eventually later on, much later in their life, they're like, actually, it is okay for me to be gay. And maybe they already have a family or something, but eventually, it's like, the ending of I Saw the TV Glow. It's like, you're going to eventually just be internally screaming and wanting to, get out of your situation. And it's either like you either be your true self or you die, so Man, I love TV Glow. God, that's such a good fucking movie. And but yeah, to circle back, they do finally have a threesome, and it's shot really well. I think yeah, this was a rated R movie. So not that it's overtly explicit, like um, there is nudity, but like we just see tits and ass, but like we're never gonna see like the only thing that a rated R movie can get away with is showing like a flaccid penis. Um, not cruel fun, not cruel. Can't say this word. Not full frontal vagina. Can't ever see that unless it's like a full bush. Otherwise, your movie will be NC-17, which is why Showgirls got that rating. Because otherwise, there wasn't really anything um overtly explicit about that movie. Like, there is full nudity, but again, no penises. Not that no, full nudity, and there is a rape scene. Again, trigger warning, content warning for that movie, those specific things. But yeah, so they have this threesome. It is really wholesome. Eddie goes in to touch Steward's ass and then pulls away. And then Steward's like, no, touch my ass. And it's like, oh, okay. Okay, Steward. You're into that. All right, I see you. And then they kind of slowly start drifting apart. And then Alex kind of has a pregnancy scare, but she doesn't end up pregnant. And then the semester ends, and then they all kind of just move away. Like Alex moves out of the dorms into her own apartment. Stuart goes back to live with his parents, and then Eddie's the one that kind of just stays in the dorm, and he eventually just gets a solo room by himself. And then so the trio, really have this one semester of blissfully being together platonically, and then having this sexual relationship with each other, and then drifting apart. And then it kind of time jumps to them in the future. Eddie gives like a voiceover narration of um, Stewart after that semester of them, being together, changes his ways and doesn't sleep around a lot anymore. He eventually gets married and settles down. Alex is just full on doing her acting and isn't with anyone. And then Eddie has a boyfriend. And so they all meet up in the future. And it was so interesting because it's like, yeah, these people are young ish. I think they're all supposed to be like juniors in college. But their wardrobe change in like the future setting definitely like aged them up, and I was like, oh wow, just so simple change of clothing can do to make someone feel much older than they are. And I'm like, wow, that just kind of goes to show like in general like how clothes can definitely shape people's perception of you and stuff. And yeah, I don't know, I was just like, oh, this is kind of sad, like I, before just looking up more about this movie, I assumed that this was written by someone like straight or something, and this was more of like a fantasy. Maybe it was about their college experiences, but it definitely was feeling like, oh, this is what they wish they could have went through, or they wish the trio worked out. And it was just sort of this like um just sad thing of like them being together and then having to go back into the reality of heteronormity and not living that life that was very much something that they enjoyed being a part of, or like I don't know, like and then so to read more about it and find out that this was autobiographical, and the Eddie character is based on Andrew Fleming and his college experiences. Like, okay, it does make sense. College is this place that young adults, join it and use it to explore their sexuality, whether that's with people that are their roommates or just with people in college in general, or just anything. But and then with a lot of people, they come out of it and they're like, all right, back to heteronormity. Like, like people have their first gay experiences there in college, and then they don't do anything outside of that, and it was kind of giving me that vibe of like, oh well, they kissed a girl in college and then nothing else. But it was sad to me, at least for like the three of them, because I'm like, did y'all have sex and that kind of ruined the possibility of what could be with your relationship? Like, it was the Shortermere's cat of it was like Shortermere's threesome, essentially, because they were so close and so intimate in their platonicness that when they actually did introduce sex into all three of them, that it kind of ruined the whole relationship and kind of the illusion, really. And for me, I'm also thinking, like, was it such a good thing that it scared them all into um not heteronormity, but at least for Stewart, because I'm like, he was the only one that like was like hardcore. I'm not gonna sleep around. I'm only gonna be faithful to one person. Eddie became, gay and fully gay. So it's just like, I don't know. It just made me kind of sad because I'm like, people do people do go through these experiences, and rather than allowing themselves to find joy in this new and different and very queer way, they would rather run away from it and go into the comfort of like a heteronormative uh sys- reality that is more acceptable, because we live in like a heteronormative society, so it was just interesting, which is why I was thinking of Splendor, because I remember that being more, at least the ending was like, okay, everyone ends up together. I just couldn't remember there being much of a conflict, which was another reason I need to rewatch it, because I was like, I don't really remember this movie. Also, before I get into Splendor, Andrew Fleming apparently also wrote and directed The Craft, and I was like, oh shit. So literally he made this movie Threesome, and then 2 years later The Craft comes out, and I was just like, oh my god. Because I'm like, The Craft is such a good movie. I black out the ending, but um before the ending it's phenomenal. Like, no, literally, I don't remember the ending. I never remember the ending of The Craft. I'm like, the ending doesn't exist. They are all friends and they are doing witchy stuff with each other and they're happy. I do I do fucking hate that the one black character in this movie, she, hexes the one racist girl towards her. And rather than that being, poetic justice, and you know, she gets her just desserts or whatever, the black girl ends up losing her hair or whatever, and I'm just like, well, fuck you. She should have killed her. No. No, but no, I really fucking hate that part of the movie. I'm like, you're gonna introduce racism, but now also sort of try to create the perfect victim when it comes to that. Because, like, what is she just supposed to accept the fact that this white lady is calling her racial slurs and shit? and she's in a predominantly white high school. Not only predominantly white high school, but also like a Catholic high school or whatever, like a religious high school. Like, fuck you. And now specifically fuck you, Andrew Fleming. Um, now Andrew Fleming, you're okay, I guess. He did recently. Well, it's not that recent because it came out in 2018. Which was only 2 years ago, right? Made a movie called Idle Home, which was also another sort of autobiographical film that was about that is based on him being a gay man and helping to raise his partner's like child. Which is like that sounds kind of wholesome. Um it's got like Paul Rudd in it. I'm like, "Oh, Lucky Monkey Pictures?" Very confused. Oh yeah, Mardi Gras is coming up. Hell yeah. Oh, there's like a Mardi Gras film festival. That's sick. Nice. When it's in your Oh, interesting. Okay, so there's drama to this because I was like, oh, is it his partner like he's with his partner and then his partner had a child when before being like fully gay, I guess. But reading the plot of the movie, it's like, oh no, they're together, and then all of a sudden a child shows up that's like, "You're my dad," and it's like, "Oh, didn't know that." Oh, that's crazy. So I can see how that could be like kind of a fun little movie. Maybe I'll check it out. I don't know if I remember it. But yeah, let's get into Splendor. Splendor, which is again a 1999 film created by Gregg Araki. I keep bringing him up. I need to watch way more of his movies. Um, especially all of the oh my god, I didn't stop. Especially all of his Doom generation films that came out a little bit before Splendor came out. So literally the Doom generation, totally fucked up, nowhere. He was involved in the nuclear cinema movement that happened in America. Um, I mean, I don't know if it was just America, but it was definitely actually, haha, I can just click on it. First going on, divine queer new wave. I like that. I'll say rather than it being strictly American, I'll say it's like a Western movement because Isaac Julian is also mentioned as creating a film during this time, and he's definitely British. So we'll say Western. Um, and I'm like, I wish we touched more on these movies because I'm like, though they're not only relevant, but it is a part of film history, and I think maybe I'll do a series on them. I don't know. Maybe that'll be like a Patreon exclusive thing or something. But I don't know. I don't like the idea of um like it's kind of annoying when like something historical like that is sort of gate kept and like put behind a paywall. Like I don't want it to be that way. Maybe I'll make like zines or something about them. Because it is really important to me. And I do find like things that are queer a lot more interesting because it's like, yeah, like we live in a heteronormative society, and it's like, sure, rom com or whatever, like love people falling in love, but I'm like, I mean, we haven't even been doing that much recently anyway. So I'm also like, well, we could go back to doing just fun, silly rom-coms. I was also thinking, I feel like I brought this up in a previous episode, but like sort of like gags and things, like body humor of people like getting hit, falling down the stairs, fart jokes and stuff like that, like very vaudevillian of us, and keeping that sort of film history alive through physical comedy. There we go. I got there. I'm like, kind of Jackass was the thing that was keeping it to keeping the torch alive or whatever. I mean, like with body comedy and everything like that, but obviously it's like, yeah, they also were jackasses about it. So I'm like, they were keeping it alive, but did they also kind of kill it a little bit? Now it's like, oh, are we gonna do these like body gags anymore like this? We'll just look like those jackass guys, you know? It's like, damn. But yeah, to what a tangent. But to get into Splendor, uh uh I'm gonna again read the Tubi synopsis. I'm like, these synopsises are hitting Tubi. Um, so a young woman balances two relationships with a sensitive, failed writer and an airheaded drummer. Ooh, I had to burp. um, evolving into an odd yet happy living situation. And so, unlike Alex from the first movie Threesome, our main lead in this, Veronica, or as Abel called her V, Zed, the other interest and boyfriend, called her Ron, and some of her friends called her Ron as well. Um, Veronica meets them, and it's more of a dating situation rather than how Alex is kind of stuck with these two guys, which is very much a classic um setup in so many things. But I'm gonna like specify more like maybe a manga or webcomic or just some sort of drama. Have I seen this in a K drama? I mean, it started with a kiss is like a classic one, but that is, it is based on a manga. But I'm thinking of the drama, the Taiwanese one specifically that I actually watched like in high school or something. I hated that show, but I watched it. The main character was just like so dumb, and it was supposed to balance out with the guy who was so smart. But I was like, it just feels like she just wore him out. And like what happens is like her house? There was a sinkhole, and her house was the only house that was affected. And I'm like, oh, that's so typical manga situation. What do you mean? And then her family is friends with the male lead's family. So they're taken in by the male lead's family. And this all happens after she confesses to him, and he rejects her. And like my whole thing with that version of the story, because I remember like it's one of those, same with like Boys Over Flowers, where there's so many iterations of it across different like more specifically Asian countries. I'm like, it'd be interesting if we ever got like an Americanized version of Boys Over Flowers, but they should have jumped on that when it was popular, because then yeah, people would have watched it too, because they're like, "Ooh, an American version. Let's see where they go with that." And it's not like America doesn't make its own version of very popular Asian media. Like that happened with The Ring. Honestly, a lot of horror movies, specifically Japanese horror movies, were remade into like these Americanized versions, and not necessarily shot for shot. Like The Ring is such a different movie from like the original Ring, which I'm saying that I know it is different, I still need to actually watch it though. I'm like, I low-key want to watch it on VHS because that feels so classic. But the thing with it started with a kiss is that she just like pissed me off because it's one thing to be dumb, but she was just so obsessed with this man. Like she had nothing. She couldn't clean, she couldn't cook, she wasn't good at school, she had no hobbies. Her thing was I love this man and they're high schooler. So I love this boy. And I was like this is like sad and pathetic. Why am I and like literally I think I ranted to this. I'm like having a deja vu moment of like talking to somebody about how I didn't like the show because I hated her character in this because I was like, what do you mean you are you have nothing else going for you except for being in love with this boy? And now that he's like forced to live with her, now he's going to deal with her being like, you know, wanting him in close proximity to him. Now he can escape her, which is why I'm like, so she basically wore him down, essentially. And then he's like, okay, I love you, I guess. And then they kiss in the rain. And I'm like, it didn't start with a fucking kiss because that kiss came like 8 or so episodes later. And now the show is over. And then I was trying to watch season 2, and I'm like, "What do you mean she's fucking pregnant?" I'm like, I don't think I cursed as much in high school, but did used to watch and read stuff even though I wasn't liking it because I was a completionist, so I was like, "I'm gonna complete this even if I don't like the thing." And it's like, no, actually, it is okay to stop. It's okay to stop doing things because you don't like them, like that's fine. Give things a chance, of course, but like if you're like, this isn't for me, like I don't like this, then yeah, like stop. But I have a little bit of the tism, so I really was like, no, I have to finish this because that's what you do, even if you don't like something. So I was very stubborn about it, but I'm over that shit. If I don't like something, I stop. I stop reading, I stop watching. The only reason I might stop reading or watching and then come back to it is because I like forgot about the thing like completely. And that's the ADHD side of myself. But either way, I remember there was a Korean version of this that came out like maybe a few years later called Playful Kiss. And in that, she is still dumb, but she's an artist. And I was like, thank fucking God she has a fucking hobby now because what the fuck was that in the Taiwanese version? And I think that was more closely um based on the manga, so they didn't really divert from it too much, but that really was that like pissed me off. It was like, what do you mean you have nothing? Nothing. You're no interest. Nothing. But the boy you're in love with. Like I can't do this. I can't deal with this. And like I'm like, damn, I was I was a hater. I still am a hater. But the thing about me and hating on stuff is that I would hate things, but if I was around people that loved them, I never voiced my disdain or dislike for it because that felt like, killing someone's joy and then like maybe dampening the vibe or whatever. So I was like, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just not going to contribute to the conversation. I'd be like, that's cool. Nice. Like I'm like, "Oh no, people are gonna find out my secrets." But it's like, that whole saying, that phrase of like, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything or whatever. Don't something like that. Sh- Close enough. um, but yeah, no. How did I even get there? I don't. I don't know. Why did I bring that up? What was I talking? um, Truly don't know. Oh, to go back to queer cinema. Because I was reading it up on the Wikipedia as like a quick overview, but they brought up a movie from Hong Kong was brought up, so I will say that maybe it isn't necessarily Western films that were a part of the nuclear cinema, but it was just like an all-encompassing thing. So I was like, oh, okay, so maybe it isn't because oh my god, where's his name? Wong Kar-wai. Oof, I know I just butchered that. Film was brought up, Happy Together from 1997, and that one specifically is about a gay couple. So yeah, I'm like, that's cool that it is more of an all-encompassing thing, but it might have a focus on like Western films, but specifically it was just like movies that came out in the 90s and maybe some in the 80s as well. Um, the 80s specifically, it being more experimental films that were queer and like avant-garde and stuff. Avant-garde? Whatever. I'm like, that is not an English word, so I will butcher it. However, yeah. So I know I described Splendor, but oh yeah, okay. So kind of coming back to it because it's like Alec. Oh, that's why I brought it. I brought up. It started with a kiss because of the whole kind of setup that felt very like anime manga situation of like, oh no, I'm now dorming with two guys. I hope nothing happens. Situation. And it's like, yeah, that just kind of happens. So I'm like, that wasn't. I'm like, art imitates life all the time. So of course it's like, yes, you can say this that movie, that specific part of that movie feels very like anime manga, but it's like anime manga is can be based on reality as well. So or, fantasies of people. But anyway, so with Veronica, she is out with her friend Mike, who is more or less a lesbian. I'm saying more or less because she doesn't explicitly say she's a lesbian, but she is. Um, I'm like, you can fucking read the context clues into it, and yeah, she is a lesbian because she invites Veronica out to go to a club during like Halloween, to see this band perform because she has the hots for the bass player, who is this like really attractive Asian woman. um, and so while also I loved fucking Mike's uh costume because it was just like a tampon box and just her head sticking out and stuff. It was just like hella funny. And it was also kind of like a barrier because this fucking crowd in this club was crazy and like smashing into each other. And so this is how she meets Abel for the first time, and she's like, wow, like, love at first sight, my Prince Charming because he is dressed like a prince or whatever. And they have this moment, right? And then all of a sudden, the band that Mike was looking forward to comes out, and Veronica sees the drummer, and then she has that same exact moment with the drummer, and she ends up, um, it's kind of crazy. So she ends up had to pause and get the timing of everything right first. So Veronica and Mike leave for a bit, and then Abel follows after Veronica and is like, hey, we had a moment there. Can I get your number? Veronica writes it down. And he's like, how am I going to know that this is your real number? And she's just like, you're going to have faith, you know? I'm like, oh, yeah, no cell phones. Well, technically, Veronica has a cell phone later on, but it's like one of those brick ass phones back in the day. And I'm like, damn, that's crazy. But so he plans to call her the next day. And so that's how her meeting with Abel ends. Then Mike and Veronica go backstage. They're able to meet the band. and stuff, and she instantly has a connection with Zed, and then they end up fucking in the bathroom, and she's like, didn't know this would happen. And then they end up, going back to her place, and she wakes up with him in bed. He has morning wood and everything. He's like, oh, sorry, that happens every morning. And they like joke about it. And then while they're about to go at it again, Abel calls her, but leaves a voice message. So she just like mutes that. And yeah, it's kind of wild. So then she meets up with Mike and tells her what happens. And Mike also tells her that the bassist is one of those straight women who like acts kind of like she might be queer, but it's like more for attention or whatever. And I'm like, damn, that fucking sucks. And we can tell, like, I kind of love how they do it with there's not that really there's not that many other characters in this, but like you can tell with Mike that she is this artist. She is always doing like some sort of sculpture. She has this cute little dog. So there's this level of world building there that's really fun. But otherwise it doesn't really pull back too much. It stays on the throuple, essentially. They eventually become a throuple. It's not at first a throuple. Um, but so yeah, Veronica is kind of conflicted because she's like, I am equally attracted to both these men, and I want to see both of these men. Like, is that okay? Like there is that little bit of conflict and doubt in the very beginning, but then eventually, so she has a date with Abel, tells him that, she's also seeing someone and everything. And at first he's like really sensitive about it, and he's like, I'm not strong enough to do that. I don't think I can do that. But then and he leaves, and I was like, oh, he has a motorcycle. I didn't think he would because of his helmet, but I'm like, never judge a helmet by its looks, I guess. And he comes back and he's like, I couldn't imagine not being able to kiss you anymore. And so he accepts that she is seeing somebody else. And then she tells the same information to Zed. And then Zed also is like, well, if he was able to accept it, I'll accept it too. It's like, I used to also date multiple people at once, but I don't think I'm going to do that now with you. But yeah, so she ended up being able to basically fuck these two guys. And it's like sort of happy for her and everything. And then things change. No. So she lives by herself. She's an aspiring actress. Zed ends up losing his job, his day job, because he is a drummer for a band. He probably wants to do that professionally, but he has a day job. And then he gets kicked out of his housing situation. They keep his drum set though, which is so fucked up. But he gets kicked out, and Veronica is like, "Oh, you can just stay with me." And until you find like another place, and then it looks like he doesn't want to be looking for another place after like 3 weeks, and Abel's just like, I can't deal with this. What the fuck do you mean? Y'all are living together, and this is also the other person you're sleeping with. So then he also moves in with them, and now they're all living together. And at first, Abel and Zed are kind of butting heads with each other because they're just like, no, but Veronica's mine, and kind of just like jealous of each other because they are two very different people. Like Abel's the more sensitive one. He's the writer. He's working on a novel, but he does music reviews, which is probably why he was at the club concert at the very beginning to do a review of it. And then, yeah, he's the himbo of the trio, and, is a drummer and everything. So they are butting heads. And then So Mike and well, Veronica is complaining to Mike about all of that, and she's just like, it would actually be kind of hot if they were like into each other as well, actually, and then we could all, be together. And if I hadn't already watched this, I would have been like, oh, is that where we're going? But I already knew that that's where we were going. So yeah, she has them all like drink together. And I mean, they live together, but they're drinking together and they're playing Truth or Dare. And she dares Abel to kiss Zed, and he kind of just smooches him. Because he's like, that doesn't count. He's like, you didn't specify. And then in between her trying to dare Abel, she gets like told to take off her clothes and like dance around and stuff. And then she dares Zed to like fully make out with Abel. And they do make out and they get real into it. And yeah, now they're a throuple. And that's very cute. And I'm like, okay, that's the first half. And then I was like, yeah, where the fuck does it go from here? Could not remember. And so she lands a gig for this like very um like he's a prominent figure in film, but she did not like the script, but she does land the role and it's like a well-paying gig, but she's like super busy. And so the boys are a little sad and she's also like, now I'm the breadwinner, like these boys are broke. Like what's going on? And the director, this guy named Ernest, is so I just realized it. He's so earnest about his feelings towards her and wanting to be supportive towards her and everything like that because she finds out that she is pregnant. And she doesn't know who the father is or anything like that. And she realizes that like she doesn't want to have an abortion, but also she they can't financially support her. So she ends up kind of running away from home, living with Mike, and then Ernest kind of comes back around into her life and is just being they kind of escape to like Miami, I think. And she's just like, wow, to be provided for financially and not have to worry about anything. Like, honestly, if I am going to keep this child, which I will, it'll be because I will be taken care of. And so she kind of leaves the guys because she is with someone who is more financially stable than them. And, they aren't fully aware that that's what's happening, but they are aware that she's mad that they aren't able to provide for her and their future child. So, Zed gets a new job. Abel's writing more and doing more reviews and stuff. And, they keep telling her these things through Mike and everything like that. And she's kind of ignoring it because she's just like, but Ernest is someone who is financially stable and can provide for me. And, she's like kind of seduced by that. But she's not attracted to this man. And honestly, like financial shit is definitely one of the big reasons that people end up like breaking up and stuff. And it really fucking sucks because of how the economy is right now. And also, it's like some people are like forced to move into their partners that they haven't known for that long because it is just that much harder to live alone or even just be in a bigger space. It's like, damn. So then if we break up, now I'm fucking stuck with you in this fucking space because I can't afford anything else right now. Like, that really fucking sucks. So yeah. So that was like the big conflict that I couldn't remember because I just remembered them being happily together in the end. And I was like, wait, what happened? Like, there, I just like blanked out the conflict of like this other man that comes into her life to try to financially take care of her, and he feels insecure about being enough for her because he's just like, how can I compete with those guys, because she does explain like everything to him and he's very accepting of it. There is like maybe one snide remark she hears about like someone being like, oh, da da da, they're together, da da da, and it's like, fuck you, shut the fuck up. Just because they're happy and you're miserable doesn't mean you have to try to make them miserable too. Like literally, shut the fuck up. How about you examine your life and figure out how you can make yourself happy? Like that's what I think about when people are like hating on children. Is like, do you hate children or do you hate that your life is miserable to the point where you have to lash out at a child for being happy outside a thing that you aren't doing and can't even feel anymore because your life has like crippled your emotions and you just work, 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 and there's no fun. And you're seeing this child on the street and you're like, fuck, I hate, like, I remember when I was this happy. Fuck you, child. Like, that's how I feel whenever I'm like, do you really hate kids or do you hate that you're not happy anymore? Because I'm like, I want to protect the like innocence and naivete of like a child who is just happy and enjoying life, especially when it comes to like black children specifically, because it's like there's so much shit that like in this world, in this fucking country, that is so against that like black childhood joy specifically, even existing, and whether it's like with the police brutality or like um if a child is disruptive, like a black child is disruptive in school, rather than it being seen as like, oh, maybe they have ADHD or something. It's like, no, you're just disruptive and now you're going to be suspended. Like there's shit like that exists, and it's like I would rather protect that childhood joy than try to erase it, because I'm like, this is just so wholesome. I'm like, y'all are just having fun in public and you're being loud about it, and it's like, that's fine. I love that. Like, keep that. Like, as an adult, the world, wants to beat you down and make you compliant and make you just be this worker, 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 barely have time for yourself or your interests or anything like that. So you do go away from that like childhood joy and everything like that. But it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, definitely make time for yourself, for your interests. Try to be happy, try not to be as miserable. It really sucks that, like we have to work so hard for so little money and then you die essentially. Like, what the fuck? The world shouldn't be built like that. Like, what the fuck are we doing? I'm like, there's these arbitrary rules created that we're just following. And it's like, ah, the world doesn't have to be that way. But either way. So, so she's in a dilemma, right? She There's this guy she has no attraction to whatsoever. I don't even think they like slept with each other. I don't think she's even like kissed him. I don't remember that happening. But he's able to provide for her financially and provide for her child. And then there's these two guys that she's in love with that they can't provide for her, which fucking sucks. And then so she gets proposed to, and it's right after he's like, I love you, and she's like, I love you too, and don't worry about those guys, like, I love you fully. And then he's like, yeah, it sucks when you're in a relationship and one person loves the other more than the other person. And I'm like, haha, that is exactly what's happening with your relationship right now, but you're in denial. So he proposes to her and she accepts, and then she tells this to Mike, and then he's rushing the fucking marriage to New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. And Mike is there as like a maid of honor, I guess. And oh, it's kind of funny because it's her hotel room is a angel number 333. And gosh. So Mike is like, this is dumb. You shouldn't do this. And she's just like, I don't, but he can provide for me. And then she has this like crash out about how much she's still in love with Abel and Zed, and she doesn't want to go through with it. And she starts crying and everything in front of Mike. And then she calms down when Ernest knocks on her door, and it's like, oh, are you doing okay? Are you almost ready? And she's like, it's bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the ceremony. And he's like, oh, just checking in with you. And then she calms down. She does her makeup over again, and she's like, all right, let me go through with this. And Mike's like, are you fucking crazy? The hell are you talking about? What was all of what you just said? Like, what are we doing here? And she's like, no, I'm gonna get married, yeah. And I'm like, ah, God. It's that like forced heteronormity that she's like pushing herself into, mainly because of the stability of this person having, money and coming from money. I'm assuming. I don't really know. We didn't really get into his backstory like that. It's just his eyes are really blue. Kind of freaked me out a little bit. Um, but yeah, so she Mike leaves her to go call the guys because she's like, this can't fucking happen. And so the guys are like drinking and depressed and stuff because, they haven't really been able to get Veronica to come around. And so Zed is like throwing up in the toilet, Abel's helping him, being attentive, like a good boyfriend. And Mike is having to leave a voicemail. And she's like, where the fuck are you guys? Like, Veronica's getting married in like 53 minutes or whatever. And Abel is able to pick up the phone just in time before, you know, Mike hangs up and everything. I'm like, damn, I remember that. When you could like be leaving a message, but someone could still answer the phone. Ah, what a time. And was able to talk to Mike in time, and they're given the address and everything, and there's this like whole montage of them brushing their teeth, showering together, cleaning themselves, getting an outfit on, and all this stuff. And I was like, I feel like that would have taken an hour, but I know that was a montage and I'm supposed to suspend disbelief or whatever, but like that would have taken a long time. But um yeah, and then they hop on Abel's motorcycle, show up. They show up to her hotel room, but she's not in there. She's actually walking down the aisle at that moment, and they run off to the balcony and they're like, stop! Before she even any vows, or the pastor does the whole, does anyone reject this union or whatever. I forget what the fuck the pastor says, and I'm like, what do you mean you can just say that and somebody can be like, no, I don't think they should get married. And like, what do you do after that? Do you not get married? Like, what even happens? Either way, they stop the ceremony from continuing. They yell at her and everything, like, come on, we love you and everything like that. And then Zed jumps, and I'm like, they're like 3 stories up. There's there's concrete, and then there's like a pool, and like there's obviously there's no way he's gonna make it, but this is a romantic comedy, so he does make it into the pool, and Abel's like, I'm gonna just take the stairs, and then it's a fake out, and he also jumps into the pool, and they confess to her, they tell her they're gonna be better, they're gonna provide for her, and all this stuff, and Ernest is just like, he's like calling the guards and shit to you know, kick them out because they're being disruptive and everything. And he's just like, don't listen to them, Ron. Like, no. And then she runs away with them, and I'm like, yes, do it. You don't love Ernest. I mean, obviously, it's going to be hard. It's going to be real rough. Um, but you got this. And then it jumps to the future a little bit. She has given birth. She actually gives birth to twins. I was remembering that um the like both of them were dads of each of the daughters, but I think that was just my headcanon. I guess I don't know because that's not we don't have any information on who the dads are, and it just ends up being cute, or who the dad is. But it ends up being cute and wholesome, and they're together. She has the babies. I'm assuming they're more stable now. It was wild that these people were like 24, 25. Even Ernest was like, so she was 24, Ernest was 27, and he was talking about like how, yeah, like my early 20s were like rough, and then you turn 25, and then there's this level of clarity and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, why are your 20s like that? It's so wild because that's definitely how it felt for me. I felt like I got less depressed. I felt like I was more passionate about stuff. And then, yeah, like the second half of my 20s was just so completely different. Like I was a completely different person from the first half of my 20s. Um, and now I'm in my 30s. I'm going to be 33 this year. So that's going to be fun. Um, 33, good times. And yeah, I don't know. So it's like, yeah, this is a very different movie where the throuple ends up staying a throuple. There was a bit of conflict, but it was definitely the realistic conflict of like, well, yeah, we're compatible, but like financially, what are we doing? Versus with threesome and how they were very platonic and very loving and probably would have wanted to stay together. And then when sex was introduced, something about that maybe was like too real and too good that they felt like they needed to run away from it. So there was very much that like sort of Christian shame, even with like when they skinny dipped and then the priest and stuff showed up. And I remember Eddie had this sort of like narration over that part where he's like, or no, actually, after they had sex, he had a narration over that part about like, leaving the Garden of Eden. So I'm like, it's really annoying the level of like sexual repression that does exist in this country and how conservative a lot of things are. And it's like, no, sex education is important. People, especially children, need to know things about their bodies. They need to know about consent because then they'll be empowered and know how to stop or at least talk about. No, not only just Huh. They'll know to say no to things, especially when it comes from people older than them, like adults in their lives, and they'll be able to talk about what could have happened to them. So it's very important. Just in general, like sex education is so important, and God, I'm like like we're in a literacy crisis or whatever. I mean, people keep saying that. I'm not in our education system in any way. But, I can only assume that these teachers that bring it up are, telling the truth or they're fear mongering or something. I don't know. Don't know. I'm like, I want to end it on a happy note before I'm like done. But, uh, like speaking of things I hate or at least found boring, Eyes Wide Shut is on TV, and I'm like, maybe I'll finally finish that movie and then I'll talk about it. I'm just like, I was so bored. I was so bored. And oh, that's what I was going to bring up. So, my thing is if a movie is experimental, but there's some narrative elements, I need to come into the movie knowing those things because if I'm seeing a movie in theaters and I know it has a narrative, I'm going to expect a narrative. right? Narrative film. Like a lot of them, the majority of the majority of movies in theaters are narrative films. So I would hope that, going into it, there is a narrative, right? I typically see like experimental films screened at experimental film festivals and things like that. So, I'm coming into it more open minded. Like, there isn't a narrative here, there isn't like a set structure for the storytelling. This is probably going to be mostly about the visuals and things like that. So, when I think of Eyes Wide Shut, there is a narrative element. It is a beautifully shot film, but otherwise, the narrative itself is like really boring to me. So I was bored for most of it. We got to the orgy scene. That was boring too. I was like, oh my god, like, what is this dry sex that's going on? I'm like, I've been to fucking orgies and shit. Like, I've been to, like, kinky clubs and shit. Like, that shit is hot. That wasn't hot. That was boring. Like, why is this boring? Anyway, and I'm like, I feel like I got to like the iconic orgy scene and all the masks and stuff, and then I was just bored, and then I'd stop watching the movie. And I'm like, okay, I'll watch the whole thing. See, I'm doing that fucking completionist shit, but I want to give that a chance because it is Stanley Kubrick. It is his last film. He was fighting to make that movie for like 30 years. I'm like, I have to know why that was specifically what he wanted to make. Why is this his last movie? Like, I want to give it another chance. It's gonna be rough watching it from the beginning, but I want to give it another chance. And I think, at least with that, because I think for my Patreon, I want to do just like sh- straight reactions, not like my first impression of something, and I'm on camera because I'm like, I'll allow some level of parasocialism, at least on my Patreon. Like, that's what people will pay for. A little, like, being able to see me on camera talk about stuff because I'm like, sure, I could be recording this podcast and camera on and everything like that, but I don't want to. No. And like, I do art stuff. Like, a lot of my like photo work is self-portraiture, so it's not like I'm not online and you don't know what I look like. But with the podcast, I'm like, no, this is an audio only situation. My Patreon will have reviews of things where I'm like, okay, I just walked out of the theater. This is how I feel about this thing. And then maybe I will talk about it later on in the podcast episode, or I won't. Like, so there might be Patreon exclusive reviews of things that just came out or something that I don't actually talk about on the podcast. So we'll get to that eventually. And I'm like, yeah, speaking of Patreon, let me boost my things. So you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/film noir. No. We're gonna rewind and do that over. You can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/V Noirs Film Club. Noir spelled with an E. Um, I'm on Instagram at V_noir_. I deleted my TikTok. I do have a Twitch. We're gonna figure out Twitch streaming. I'm not gonna be streaming on Saturdays. I might do streams once a month. It might be connected to the Patreon as well, but we'll see. But that Twitch is twitch.tv/V_noir. And then you can check out the podcast archive at www.nwwitapod.com. Again, that's www.nwwitapod.com. And thanks for listening, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.